over the last year or so, I've seen a lot of newer players enter this game, and they always want to know like what builds to use, what characters to use, what are the best subclasses, what exotics do I use, and how to get them. This is to show how to get roughly half the exotic weapons in the game, and that's via exotic ciphers. You get exotic ciphers once a week from Xur when he comes in Friday to Tuesday. He will spawn in somewhere on the map, either in Nessus, EDZ, or in the tower. You can just look up a video where is there this week and you can find him, and he will present you a quest where if you do a bunch of ritual activities such as Crucible, Gambit, or Strikes, you can get an exotic cipher from him. It's a once a week currency, but it's used in a very important way, and that's to obtain older exotics that no longer have a quest line or a means of entry to obtain them. Once you get that exotic cipher, you gotta take it over here to the exotic archive, which is in between the vaults area over by Shax. Shax is over here. Spawn area is over there. Just run over here. And we're going to take you straight into the Red War area. Don't worry about this Legacy area, it doesn't need the exotic ciphers, but if you want a quick rundown, don't grab anything with this white triangle. You can't infuse this up to light, it will be at 1600 for the rest of your time in Destiny. So I wouldn't recommend grabbing any of these white triangle weapons. I would just worry about this top line right here. And the only weapons that are worth grabbing are maybe Salvager Salvo, which has a unique role with Chain Reaction and Ambitious Assassin, but there are better versions of all these weapons. So for example, a better version of this weapon is Forbearance, which is the wave GL you get from Vow, and you can craft it, which it just performs way better than this. This is a solid roll if you don't want to, or you're not ready to like raid a bunch yet and get a crafted weapon. Null Composure is really good if you don't have a Reservoir Burst fusion. Reservoir Burst is really good at clearing out a bunch of ads. It just creates huge explosions, and it's a very nice perk. You can obviously farm better rolls of this weapon too. Shield Clip is a good example of Reservoir Burst, but not needing a full mag. It's just a solid weapon. Bungie describes these weapons as a 70% of a god roll, so if you want like a decent weapon, feel free to grab it. For PvP, Fall Winters is a good shotgun, and Adored is a good sniper if you need one of either, but again, you can farm a better roll of each. Real quick editor note, just to avoid confusion, you can't farm those specific weapons with a better roll. It's like not possible, but there are other weapons that roll those perk combos, and you can get better versions of or craft them, and etc, etc. Those weapons are no longer obtainable other than this method. First exotic section we're going to get into is Red War. There's not much here. There are a few good options like Sleeper. Sleeper's a great damage option if you really need something. Or Whisper of the Worm is slowly but surely getting back to its former glory where it was DPS meta. They keep buffing this thing and it's getting even more buffs next season with a 10% damage buff. So if you want to have fun with a sniper, feel free to pick this one, but it is currently not the best weapon ever, but it is getting a buff like I said, so it could rise to glory if you want to be prepared and grab it within the next 6 weeks. Outbreak Perfected is a pretty fun weapon. It's not meta by any means, but it's pretty fun to have and just create a mini army whenever you get a precision kill, and they'll chase down other enemies and murder them at the same time. Polaris Lance just got a fantastic buff where if you hit 5 shots in a row and precision headshots, it'll ignite the target, so it'll create an explosion on them and cause a lot of damage. It's a very strong weapon with Solar 3.0, so if you want a scout rifle for that, this would be your pick. The other weapons are kind of just niches, so they have their fun slots, but they aren't really anywhere close to meta. I'd call them all like C tier or under probably. The next section we have is Forsaken Exotics. Forsaken Exotics are some of the best exotics in the game, so this is going to be a really longer section, so be prepared. First off, we're going to start from left to right. Ace of Spades. Ace of Spades is a fantastic hand cannon that you can use in Crucible. It's probably one of the best now with the mod changes because you can get surges up fairly easily if you use a Reaper mod in your class item. And if you get that ×3 surge, you can 2-tap most Guardians in the head unless they're at a high enough resilience. Very good weapon this season, and I'd recommend picking up if you like Crucible a lot. Last Word has always been a meme. It is the controller weapon. Since it got reworked back in the day to be a hipfire weapon, this weapon just excels excessively on controller. It's still pretty good on PC if you want to use it with your mouse and keyboard, but it is definitely memed on as the controller weapon. If you do run the sticks, feel free to pick this one up. It's probably, it has one of the fastest time to kills in the whole game for Crucible. It's very good. Well, Monarch is a fantastic bow to use in GMs because it has intrinsic overload, so you can stun champions pretty easily, and it does some good linger damage. It is also pretty annoying in Crucible. People hate this thing with a passion, and it's just good in both categories, and a pretty good pickup. I'd recommend this as like top 5 pickups you should probably grab if you like bows in any way, shape, or form. Jotun's kind of an avoid weapon. It's fun. You can fire fireballs at people, and if they aren't paying attention, you get free kills. More of a Crucible thing. It can ignite in PvE, but I wouldn't recommend using this over like Polaris Lance in the last category. Burden is a top 3 weapon. I would recommend grabbing this thing whenever you get a chance. Should be one of the first weapons you get. And it's just a very, very strong weapon. It is a kinetic sniper, which just got buffed this season. It does extra damage because it is kinetic. And if you get the catalyst for it, which I'm not too sure how to obtain, but this thing is just a monster. You consume 4 bullets to put 1 in your mag, and it basically turns those 4 bullets into 1 and does a ton of damage if you headshot a target. It is one of the best weapons to use, and the DPS meta currently is to use this with an auto-loading rocket to swap between them while doing damage. It's just a great weapon. Like I said, top 3, you should definitely try and grab that as soon as possible. Thorn is another PvP choice. It's very good. I wouldn't say it's anywhere near as good as Ace of Spades at this current moment in time, but it is a good pickup. It does some good damage over time. It leaves enemies wounded for a little longer if you need that, and it's just a feel-good hand cannon. It's one of the best feeling hand cannons in the game. Lumina is a fantastic support choice. If you want to be a support player, it's a great PvE weapon for in-game content. If you need to squeeze out a little more damage, it provides one of the highest damage buffs in the game at 35% if you use a Noble Round on a teammate. The way this works is once you get a kill, it drops a Noble Round Seeker and it loads it into your mag. So next time you fire a shot, it'll shoot that Seeker. So you fire it at a teammate. You and that teammate will get 35% damage buff, and it works in an AoE. So if all your teammates are together, you'll give everyone 35% damage buff for I think 10 seconds, and you'll get it as well. Truth is an avoid weapon. It just doesn't do anything any better than any legendary rocket. You can literally grab any legendary rocket, and it will probably do about the same, if not more than Truth. So avoid Truth at all costs. Bad Juju is more of a fun weapon. If you want to get your super really fast, it's a really good weapon for it. The more kills you get, the more super energy. Very strong. If you want to run a super build. If you don't really care about super and you want more ability energy, there's better weapons. I would stay away if you don't really care about your super that much. Anarchy is a really good damage over time weapon, but it just kind of gets beat by Witherhoard strictly because Witherhoard is a kinetic weapon, so you can use a linear in your heavy slot. Anarchy is only really used in a double slug build, but those don't exist much anymore unless you're on a solar hunter. So I would avoid Anarchy if you need be, but if you want to have a little bit of fun with damage over time, it is a very fun grenade launcher. So it's really your call, but I would recommend avoiding it a little bit. Terabud just got a nerf in PvP. It did have a higher zoom and was one of the menaces in PvP. So I would grab this if you can. It probably still performs really well, especially since we have Immortal terrorizing the game right now. The Terabud's probably a good alternative and can compete with it. Always in Time is just a Sparrow from Scourge of the Past. It's a unique one that not many people got during the time. It was very rare. But there is a bug with this Sparrow currently. I don't know if it's being fixed in the future. Bungie said it was a complicated coding issue, so we don't have a idea of when it will get nerfed, if it will ever get nerfed. But it is currently the fastest Sparrow in the game. Even though it says 160, it does go faster than all the other Sparrows in the game. Specifically this one and not any other one. This will, as far as we know, will be the fastest Sparrow in the game for the foreseeable future. Don't worry about this Ascendant Shard. This is only here because I have Forsaken Ciphers. I'm realizing now that all these say Forsaken Cipher now. I'm sorry, the currencies are still exotic ciphers. I just got these from a bundle back in the day, and I like collecting rare items, so I still have these. Next section is Shadowkeep exotics. Shadowkeep doesn't have the best selection of exotics, but it also doesn't have anything actually terrible. The better selections in here are 100% Leviathan's Breath, which is a good damage option. I would recommend grabbing this if you like bows in any way. It does a ton of damage. It does have a longer draw time, so it can get annoying to use for people who don't really like that sort of stuff, like slower weapons, but it does output an insane amount of damage now since it got recent buffs. Good weapon, solid weapon. Grab it if you want to use a bow in your heavy slot. It's honestly really fun, and it also stuns Unstoppables. It's really good for destroying those champions. The only other weapon in here I would strongly recommend is Witherhoard. Witherhoard is a top 3 choice, probably top 1 in my personal opinion. I think this weapon is fantastic. It is the other damage over time exotic weapon in the game, and you can just stick a target and then unload on them with a heavy. Fantastic weapon for Starfire builds or Cataclysmic builds from Val. Anything with a linear or a rocket. This is just free damage over time just by shooting it at a target. You can't really go wrong with this. It's good in so many different builds, and it's just all around a versatile weapon that you can use in all types of content, in-game, normal content, anything. Only other weapons I would recommend here, other than like a fun factor, would be Fourth Horseman. It has its niches, not great, but it does output an insane amount of damage, especially since it just got a bug fix. Good option. Not the greatest though. I wouldn't recommend unless you just want to watch a shotgun fire at like 9,000 rounds a minute. And yeah, it does a good amount of damage, but it has reserve issues. Traveler's Chosen is probably the best of the fun options, I would say. It's not the meta option or anything by any means, but the more kills you get with it, the more abilities you get. It by itself regenerates ability energy, and it's really, really helpful. Next area we have Beyond Light exotics. Beyond Light, we didn't get too many exotics. These are some solid options. They're not great by any means. Tiku's is a good bow for Overload, but you have Le Monarch, which just does its job better. This is just a more fun bow. And Aegir's Scepter is probably a top 5 weapon. You should grab this if you want to run any kind of stasis build. This is one of the best weapons in the game for stasis builds. Kinetic Trace Rifle, or a primary weapon Trace Rifle, it goes in your top slot, and it just outputs a ton of damage. It's a very good trace rifle, freezes everything around targets you kill. Fantastic option if you like stasis in any way. Next section is Witch Queen. Witch Queen, we also didn't get many exotics, and I wouldn't recommend any of these, honestly. Grand Overture can do a good amount of output, like damage to like burst damage, but once you get that burst off, it kind of just falls off a cliff. It isn't the worst weapon, it isn't the greatest. If you just want to fire a volley of rockets, feel free. It's still a fun weapon, but I wouldn't call it meta by any means. Last weapon we have is Quicksilver in the Lightfall area. This is probably the best strand weapon in the game right now. The grenade launcher does a ton of damage. I would really recommend grabbing this thing if you like stranded anyway, because once you get the catalyst, which I think you get from Banshee, once you get this done, it turns into a strand weapon. You can get strand grenades in your grenade launcher as well, and the little mini rockets it fires also is strand. So great weapon to pair with strand, and it is also getting a buff next season, so or during the mid-season update. So if you want to have an auto rifle that hits like a truck and is strand, feel free to grab this. That's about it for the video though. Those are exotics I would recommend. I would say most of these are fun exotics, but there are meta choices in here. I did point them out. So if you guys enjoyed the video, please subscribe, leave a like, and I hope you guys all have a good day.